Hey guys, from Reddit. Sorry, I'm operating on too little sleep here. There's a couple of questions that have been asked repeatedly, and I wanted to address them. One is, are there any myths we want to test that the producers won't let us? Well, given the fact that we are executive producers of our show, the answer to that is no. Discovery always wants us to test stuff that's spectacular, and in general, some of the most dangerous stuff we want to do is spectacular, and they've always been a great partner in helping us find some way to do it, the resources, the money, the time. So really, there's nothing giant on our list where we're like, oh, those dratted producers won't let us do it. The other repeated question that I think at least 3, if not 4 people have already asked is, what's the scariest moment on the show? And I've talked about this publicly a few times, but it bears some storytelling here. We tested underwater car a few years ago. I think back in 2006, we went out to a pool in the East Bay here in the San Francisco area, and we lowered a car into a swimming pool repeatedly while I was sitting in the driver's seat in civilian clothes and escaped using various techniques. And the episode got a lot of great response, specifically because I didn't realize that is a lot of people's greatest phobia, is being in a car when it goes underwater. And we uncovered some interesting science about that. But after we aired that episode, we got a lot of new information about the fact that most cars, when they go in the water, they don't go in and then just sink. They actually go in and do what's called turning turtle. They go upside down. And that episode is the scariest thing that's ever happened to me on the show. So we went out to Ione, California, up here in Gold Country, and we set up a methodology with which to pull a car off of a barge from its rear bumper so that as we pulled it, we'd pull it all the way over. Our biggest concern at that point was that I would get some kind of concussion from the impact of the car on the water. So we had Jamie and the camera crew on a separate barge right next to where the car was. Jamie and I had worked out really every contingency, including keeping the car from sinking too far. The water was 45 feet deep. We're not going to have me go to 45 feet where the visibility is literally zero. We wanted the car to rest about 10 feet below the surface of the water. And that required 4 large barrels being used as buoys with ropes tied so that they didn't get tangled, so that when the car pulled, it was a very complex setup that worked perfectly. I sat in the driver's seat with my seatbelt on. My safety diver, Don Best, who's a licensed paramedic diver, was strapped into the back seat. I had 4 sources of air, including an extra minute of breathable air on my shoulder. And the car went off the barge and went over, and it worked just fine. The camera crew could hear that I was narrating to the cameras that were above the water. But as we went, a couple of things happened. One was that as I moved around the car, it changed its balance point significantly, and the car is much less stable on its top than it is upright, and so it lurched. It lurched, and then it actually turned all the way over before turning all the way over again. That was a little disconcerting. The other thing to know about when a car sinks is it sinks in a kind of a hockey stick shaped graph. So it goes slow, 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 and then when it starts to speed up, whoop, it goes very quickly. You have about 60 seconds. About 45 seconds in, the water's kind of up to here. I'm narrating what's going on to the last camera above the water. And then it's time, with 10 seconds to go, to start to hyperventilate, to bring extra oxygen into my blood so I can hold my breath for a longer period of time. I can hold my breath under normal conditions for just over 2 minutes. But then I hyperventilated, I held my breath, the water went up, now the car was sinking slowly. And I opened my eyes, and they burned, and I couldn't see a thing. The car had been owned by a smoker, and we cleaned out 500 or 600 cigarette butts from this car. I'm not exaggerating at all. And the water, when the car filled with water, the water was milky brown, and it burned my eyes. So I had to close my eyes, and I had to kind of assess what was going on. And then I'm sitting there in the car holding my breath, and I'm thinking, okay, right, I've got to find the door. And I reach, and now I can't actually remember whether I'm in the front seat or the back seat. I actually lost my bearings, just as people had told us happens very frequently. I wasn't sure which end was up even. And I felt a window, and I found a door handle, and it just didn't do anything for me. And I realized I didn't even know which side the window the lock was on. I felt for it, I couldn't feel it. Now about 45, 50 seconds had passed. The amount of energy I had expended moving around this car, I didn't have any breath left. So I took a couple of breaths from my shoulder bottle, and That was okay, but now it's time for me to get a permanent source of air, something that will allow me to continue the rest of the experiment. So I reached out towards Don Best, who is upside down in relation to me, and he can't actually get out of his seat. He's, at this point, looking for a knife, which he's got, to cut his seatbelt. But he sees my hand in front of his face, and he puts a regulator in it. And I put that regulator in my mouth. But if you're a scuba diver, you might have surmised that regulator went into my mouth upside down, because Don was upside down. And an upside down regulator will give you air, but it also gives you a lot of water. And I felt a little bit like I wanted some air, so I took a deep breath and took a whole bunch of water. That is a very, very scary thing to happen when you're underwater and you've been holding your breath for a while. The water hit me, my whole body tensed up, and I swear this thought went through my head. Calm people live, tense people die. So I calmed down and thought, what do I need to do? Oh, right, I need to pull the regulator out, turn it over, put it back in, purge it, and then take a nice breath of clean air. Now, under those conditions, the last thing you want to do is pull the regulator back out of your mouth. So I ended up taking a second breath just to see, maybe the second one's cleaner. No, still got water. So then I pulled it's really hard to describe how much you don't want to pull the regulator out of your mouth, but teachers tell you that that happens, and it's totally true. Pulled it out, turned it over, purged it, and at that point I was fine. I was about 4 seconds from the police safety divers. We had one on each side of the car, outside. They were about 4 seconds away from smashing the windows when I opened the door and gave them the okay sign. That right there is closer than either Jamie or I ever want to come again to a situation in which not panicking is the primary reason it went without incident. Thanks. Okay. Oh, yeah.